So welcome to this episode of Menopause Conversations. I believe this is going to be episode 60. Can you believe? Done
Congrats.
60 of these Menopause
Matches my age,
Conversations.
Amanda.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic, Karen. I'm so happy I was able to do that for you.
No, I wish.
So it's an absolute joy to have three people on today's conversations, and it gives me great pleasure. I usually end up having lots of conversations with people before we actually get to the record stage, and that has been absolutely true with my guests today, which is Ann O'Neill and Karen Morton, Dr. Karen Morton. So we've got something exciting to talk to you about. We find ourselves in 2024 still sadly discussing the lack of equity and equality when it comes to issues around women's health, and quite frankly it incenses me, but it incenses me in a great way because it makes me want to do something about it. And by being vocal about that, I've managed to connect with amazing people like Anne and Karen who are providing very real world solutions to that lack of equity. And so it gives me great pleasure to talk to them about their Adora app. And so I'd like to pass over to make their own introductions, because they'll do it so much better than I will, to Anne and to Karen. You decide between you who wants to go first, but if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves to us and letting us know how it is that you are known to one another and why it is you're together.
So so I suppose I ought to start because I was the one who reached out to Karen. So maybe I'll introduce myself and explain. But so I'm Anne O'Neill. I'm the co-founder of Adora Digital Health, and we're a women's health company with a platform focused on health and well-being for women as they transition through menopause. And we have a sort of unique approach to the way we do it. And that's come as a result of talking to hundreds of women over the last few years and really understanding the pain points that they have. In terms of how I met Karen, one of the first things I did, Adora came as a result of my experience in perimenopause and not understanding the symptoms that I had and wanting to be part of the solution for that. So when I came up with an idea, one of the first people I reached out to with the idea was Karen, who is absolutely amazing, women's health advocate, gynecologist, entrepreneur, clinician, top woman. I wanted her opinion, and that's how I met Karen. But I should let Karen introduce herself now.
That's fantastic. So out of a need came something, a great union between you. So Karen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
No, sure. So I'm Karen Morton. I'm a consultant obstetrician gynecologist down in Guildford, where I've been now for many years. I'm a doctor. Fundamentally, I'm a doctor with a huge sort of breadth of medical training, and I think I bring to the women's health space a lot more than just menopause, if I may say so. And I think there is so much more to health and to women's health than just menopause. In fact, I like to be an advocate for women along their whole life's journey. I do look after children and adolescents, and I do think that it is part of a continuum. Of course, I've lived each of those experiences: the wanting a baby, the having a miscarriage, the actual having of the children, the being a mother, and then going through menopause itself. If I could take issue with one word, which actually both of you have used, which is transition. And I hate the word transition because it sort of implies that you go from one thing to another, a bit like going from a solid to a liquid or something. Whereas I just see it as being that we should be living our best lives all the time, not moving from one thing to another, but continually growing, learning, enjoying, giving, all of those things.
And that's a really fair point, actually, because I mean, the continuum is a concept within mental health as well, isn't it? It's like you can be anywhere at any time. I suppose why people tend to use that terminology, transition, is because we're spoon-fed phases, aren't we, within the female life cycle, or those with female biology, that you move from here to there and there to there, and you don't move back, type thing. Yes. But it is an important, language is so important, isn't it, within women's health, and actually getting some consistency would be key. So I'll I'll own that, Karen. I think that's a really fair point. Right. She says, rolling up her sleeves. We're off. So, and it is great to be in this conversation, because we do find ourselves at different stages along that continuum. I've just recently become postmenopausal after 16 years being perimenopausal. So it's just always interesting. And I think because we don't have any guide rails, we're all uniquely different. I think it presents lots of challenges, lots of opportunities as well. I'm a great advocate that this is a time of empowerment for people, especially if we get things right. But the women's health strategy has a big task ahead of it, doesn't it, in terms of really getting this right across the whole life course. But let's get into it then. Let's talk a little bit more about the solution. So let's talk about the need first. I'm a sales girl at heart, and if there's one thing that we need to establish, it's what's the need. So what is the need as far as you both are concerned when we do talk about women's health?
Anne absolutely understands the economics of the impact of this on the workforce. So if we just deal just with the workforce, Anne, perhaps you'd talk about that.
Yeah, well, and I can kind of reduce it really to my story and why I started Adora in the first place. So I was working, having had a long break to bring up children, had a break, got back into the workplace, just getting into the swing of things. And then wham, I was hit by the perimenopause symptoms and didn't recognise them, wasn't educated in them. I was in my late 40s, so I didn't think it was something that menopause related to me. So it was that lack of education and then the impact it had on my ability to earn that really sort of incensed me and made me think I want to be part of the solution. And so that's what Adora is doing. It's trying to help women understand the symptoms they're experiencing, what to do about them, and keep them thriving, keeping them in the workplace, so that we do try to reduce the pension pay gap and the gender gap. I think it's quite well known that 1 in 10 women leave the workplace because of the menopause and their inability to manage their symptoms alongside their work. But many more say that menopause has a negative impact on their work, and this is what we're trying to tackle. And the resources for women are inadequate, I think. In primary care, there is a lack of knowledge. It's getting better all the time, but women are struggling sometimes to be heard, and they're struggling to get the things that they need in the time that they need them to make a difference. So I would say there is a big impact at this stage of life for women, and it does need addressing.
Yeah. So Karen, if I can ask you then, to be that contentious person who may be watching this, or someone who just holds a different view around, surely the NHS should be enough for us. Surely there should be enough capacity in the NHS. I mean, what's your experience of that?
Well, there aren't enough menopause specialists. There isn't enough menopause training. There's no menopause training really to speak of in medical school, not really. The British Menopause Society are a fantastic advocate for training and bringing in nurses and GPs, gynecologists with specialist qualifications, but the provision is very poor, and I would emphasize at this point, I know that this is where my business project and Anne's business project sort of comes in, but nothing lends itself better to remote consultation than menopause, having a jolly good conversation, a time unlimited conversation. You're very rarely going to need to examine women in this circumstance, and they may have other gynecological or general health issues that do require you to, do a smear test or something like that. But in principle, it really lends itself so well, and it means it blends with a woman's timetable. She, when the children have gone to bed, if she can have a conversation with an expert about her problem, rather than having to take time off work. I mean, think of the advantage of that, not only to her, but to her employers.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
A no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, because the reality is, like you say, I mean, on average, I believe statistically it's about 2 hours that someone may have had covering the topic of menopause. I mean, we know that's changing thanks to people like Diane Dancerbrink, who have really championed that through petitioning to actually get it on the agenda. But we've still some way to go, and we've also got a bit of catch up for people who are already qualified, who maybe just don't know where to begin with it all. So the reality is, I mean, I would like to just come back to the whole thing about the workplace, because obviously that's an area of specialism for us, which is that the reality is, I think sometimes, again, we blur the lines on that conversation that menopause is the reason that people step away from work. I would just say it's the lack of support whilst actually experiencing menopause. So I think they're quite different things. I think your symptoms can be difficult, but they may not be the reason for you to step away. I think a lack of support as you're trying to sort of marshal all of that can be more of a driver for people to step away. So you're right. If people don't have additional stresses because they're having to do double the amount of work because they've got to step out of the workplace to go to an appointment, I think this can be really, really helpful. So can we talk about, I mean, because let's be honest, there are a lot of apps out there that, this is a very buoyant, commercially abundant market. Everyone wants a slice of it. What makes your app, Adora, what makes it different to some of the other offerings that are out there? I mean, obviously we're not going to name other ones specifically, but conceptually, what makes it different?
So I think when we started this project, we wanted to really understand the pain points that women were experiencing, and we wanted to build a product with the voices of women and give them the things that they needed according to the multiple hats that they wear at this stage of life. We wanted to try and do something about the way they were feeling at this time of life, when there was a lot of confusion, uncertainty, heightened anxiety. And so our approach, really, how we take women through the journey, won't use the word transition, how we help them understand what they might be experiencing, how we educate them on the symptoms, and then guide them and support them to solutions, is what makes us distinct. So we use conversational AI, so we're guiding women with conversation, and we're validating the pain. We're reassuring them that what they're experiencing is very, very normal, or not normal, in which case we alert them to services that they should access. But the idea of Adora is as a companion through menopause. It's not about a quick fix. It's not about instant gratification. It's not about gamification. It's about really trying to improve a woman's health outcomes as a result of good expert advice at the moment of need, and delivered in a way that is engaging and that she can understand and reflect on. So one of the important things about that is who is providing that content, and that is where Karen Morton comes in as our clinical director. We have a clinical safety officer, and we have a lot of experts. We abide by all the British Menopause NICE guidelines. So we're properly an app that is very highly regulated, and in that way I think women can be very, very sure about the expertise that they're getting from the platform, and it's landing really well. Women are coming in, they're learning about a symptom, they're potentially tracking that, they're going in to talk to line managers, feeling more confident about understanding what's going on, having a better conversation with the GP because they're more informed, so there's much more shared decision making. So we really are like this little companion on a woman's shoulder when she needs us, and that tends to be when she's feeling low, when symptoms are at their worst. And then, of course, there are all the new unknown health needs that she has. For example, when she hits the sort of genitourinary stage of menopause. And a lot of women, we find, I mean, Karen will tell you, a lot of women go to see her after years of suffering, putting up with things, because it's quite embarrassing, and it's very intimate, it's very private, and it's very taboo. Using our conversational approach, we're able to break that down into assessments which really help women understand what it is they're experiencing, but most importantly, what they can do about it. And that's what we're really focused on. It's how do we improve things for women from the moment they enter the app till the moment they don't need us anymore. And that's really the approach.
And so, Karen, can I come to you? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, it's not just about raising awareness.
No.
And awareness is a good thing, of
Mm.
course, through the media and through celebrity and everything else. But it is absolutely solution driven. It's a companion, as Anne says, and it should be women can start to use Adora from when they're whatever age they choose. I think both Anne and I have it in our minds that we'd love women on their 40th birthday or whatever it is, maybe their whichever birthday, that they would receive a message from the NHS to say, happy birthday. Now is the time to start to learn about the next half of your life and to optimize your health during that time. And it's not, of course, it's not just pure gynecological health. Of course, genital urinary things, bladder, vagina, all of that are incredibly important. But actually our cardiovascular health,
Mm.
everybody knows about bone health, but our brain health, all sorts of aspects of our health will be bound up with how we learn about where we are and what we're going to do about maintaining and indeed maybe even improving, being our best selves for the next half of our lives. Of course, I know we're talking about menopause and Adora today, but it should be there from much earlier on. And I often say to my teenage patients that it's not all right to not play in a sports match or to have a day off school or a day off work. It's not all right. It's not necessary. There must be a solution, and people, younger women should be encouraged to go and get that solution, because the die is cast on the gender pay gap the first time they don't go to school. And that there are solutions for those
For
young women as
sure.
well. So just moving all the way through that journey, the principle of Adora, I'm sure can apply across the board.
I really like that, actually. I'm a big fan of products for period wear, because actually, back in 1980, I never thought we'd have period wear that came in the form of a thong, but we do, because if that's what someone wants to wear when they're playing sport, that's absolutely fine. And you're absolutely right, Karen, because it's a travesty that because of menstruation, mostly, that we have young people not attending school. We know how that disadvantages them enormously. So it is, I mean, it's the beginning, isn't it? And there's no better place to start with menopause, but obviously like any octopus, it's got tentacles that can go and reach into other areas. So I know this will be useful for people, because I had the benefit, anyone who knows me, and Anne will know this, I don't endorse or support or recommend anything that I haven't observed or seen or experienced myself. It just doesn't happen. And so Anne very patiently has taken me through and shown me the capacity of Adora, and I really, really like it. So can we sort of evoke some of that for the people watching? If we were to give an example, my favorite example is someone who's noticing their cycles changing and they're feeling a bit more anxious. Okay. How could Adora help them? How can we sort of help people understand what that journey might look like? So you get the app. What do? Do you start logging stuff? Do you start reading stuff? How does the AI help us?
I think I'd just like to sort of try to explain to anybody listening or watching how you might be feeling at that time. So as I said, we've talked to hundreds of women, and in many instances, they've never talked to anybody about menopause. And this could be a woman in her mid-50s, or it could be somebody just starting sort of early 40s. But so many times we are the first conversation they've had. And that's quite revealing. But it also tells us that it's a time that that women can feel quite anxious, and they can be hit by different feelings at this time. So they could be, for example, if a woman's periods are starting to change and she's trying to conceive, that can be a terrible time for her. Or if a woman is experiencing chaotic periods or flooding, she could be experiencing anxiety around that and not understanding at all what is wrong, or the mood swings that might go with that as well. So it is a time of concern and worry and anxiety. And what we do is we welcome a woman in, we introduce this conversational approach that we have, We reassure her that we're there to help support her in her healthcare journey. We're not replacing a GP, but we are there to help her with an initial assessment, which is something that Karen and her team have created over many months, and that will educate a woman through the symptoms of perimenopause and give her an explanation of what stage she's possibly at. So that first moment is really reassuring for a woman. There's also a number of red flags in there. So we are picking up instances where something is unusual, and we're suggesting a woman gets that checked out. So we're very responsible in that way. But that's the beginning of her journey with Adora. And from there, depending on what she's told us, we can personalise the education that we give her, or specifically it might be headaches that might be the problem for her, or it might be flooding, but we can personalise the education and the advice. We can help her track the impact of her symptoms so that when she goes to her GP or she goes into the workplace, she has more evidence and therefore more confidence to have a conversation. And then we give her next steps. So we can, for example, a woman who has genitourinary symptoms, we can help her understand what she can do about it and the sort of conversations she can have. And for those women who have severe symptoms and for whom, you know, they're not getting the care that they need, the support that they need with their GP, they can immediately access our online service, which is led by Karen Morton and her team. So for those women, if they have complications or if they have symptoms that they're just not getting better with, or if they just want an expert consultation with a women's health expert, it's all there in the platform. And that's the kind of service that we offer women. And we also do a number of educational webinars throughout that are in the app as well, led by Karen on HRT, or Tanya Borowski, who's a functional medicine practitioner on gut health and brain health. And we've had Kate Roham talk about exercise. So there's some really great video content there for women as well, that again, we can serve it to them depending on the symptom and depending on what we know is their pain point. But it's that kind of support and the personalised information that helps a woman not feel alone, and she dips in and out of it. It's there 24/7. The more she shares with us, the more we can personalise. And in that way, that's how we believe we're going to make an impact on health inequity, because it's kind of personalised healthcare at scale. So whilst it's something that is available for women in the workplace, we're not stopping there. We want to make this available to all women in time.
And importantly, of course, Samantha, we're not trying to sell them anything.
No, okay, because that's really important, because in amongst all that anxiety is a huge amount of vulnerability. And
there is.
And people ask, and I know how desperate I was for a solution.
Yes.
Karen, I really did financially bankrupt myself at points, trying to get right. So that's really powerful. Can I just ask both of you then, just because I know people will be like, yeah, okay, so conversational. Can we clarify for people, is that through a chat bot or something? Is that, you know, how do I communicate? When we talk about conversation, it's not actually a conversation like this. It's through typing, right?
Yeah, so it's natural language understanding. So a woman can ask a question about a symptom and she'll get a response back. But it's conversation with a conversational agent, but also we can transfer, if we need to nurse chat, and then we can transfer to our online service. So it's a sort of conversational approach, but the level of conversation depends on where you are. So if you need to speak to, if you want to speak to a healthcare professional, you could do that through the platform. And if you want a consultation, you could do that as well.
Yeah,
but
so it's that conversation, and because it's AI, it's learning, I guess, from the responses that are coming in. And like you say, it can funnel, because I think that's a massively reassuring thing, certainly for me, when I think about a lot of the women that I see and that I direct and signpost and support. It's like, actually, at what point do you now know this is outside of my remit, that's someone else's remit? I think if the AI is consistent in that way, then it's really helpful. I mean, what sort of success stories are you having with this? I mean, is it that the turnaround times for people feeling okay are shortened? Is it that people are accessing the right supports at the right time? What do you feel are the success stories so far with Adora?
I think it's that we're able to deal with every woman. So as you know, it's every woman goes through menopause, but everybody's journey is different. Everyone has particular circumstances, particular symptoms, and we can deal with all of that. So I think that is the strength of Adora. And in terms of successes, one woman's success wouldn't be another one's. But for us, if we are improving health outcomes, if we are keeping women thriving, if we're having an impact on the way they're feeling, and they're coming out of the experience with Adora more educated, more knowledgeable, and with the confidence to do something about it, then we feel that we're doing a really good job. But lots of the women who come through the Adora platform will have consultations with Karen and her team, and that can be everything from a general conversation to an HRT prescription to blood tests. Karen can organise all of that. I don't know, Karen, if you want to talk about.
Well, I think by the time women get to their mid-40s, the majority of women have got some medical story as part of them. It's hard to come to 45 without having either had a gynecological endometriosis or fibroids or some sort of medical thing. They may be migraine sufferers. They may have hypertension. By that time, they may have a family history of breast cancer or other things. So they feel complicated. Some women will be very straightforward. They're very, very lucky. But most women will have something to tell. They might have had 3 miscarriages and not managed to have children, or on the contrary, they may have had 5 children and have a prolapse by now or something. So they want to discuss all these things. We're not just a woman having hot flushes and feeling anxious. There may be so many more nuances, and a skilled clinician, or indeed a well-trained AI-driven conversation, can help tease that out to give reassurance and point women in the right direction to get the actual definitive help.
I think that's so important, actually, Karen. I mean, I'm an NLP coach as well, so I know the power of trauma that people bring. Trauma-informed care is much needed, but the reality is, I suppose, what I'm hearing is the AI is sophisticated enough and it's backed up by real life clinicians. So tell us a little bit about your team, Karen, if you wouldn't mind. Who supports you in the humanoid function of this great.
Well, I have a fantastic team of gynecologists and GPs who've done the advanced menopause specialist training.
Yes.
I am a menopause trainer, and I have 4 trainees doing the advanced training at a time, and we do supervisions on Sunday afternoons, and all the team participate in these meetings. So there's a lot. We call it a multidisciplinary team meeting as well. Everybody brings difficult cases to discuss. We're learning all the time, and that's great because it keeps us all buoyant in the space.
Yeah.
Because not every lady is easy.
No, and like you say, I mean, as we know through the narratives that we're hearing, ADHD diagnosis, PMDD diagnoses, those can be very late diagnoses for people, much later in life, even though they maybe have been masking. So it is really, it's almost like you can't be just a specialism in menopause. It's like everything, like you say, it's generalist, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Only yesterday, Amantha, I sent out the invitation for our next. We hold a lovely meeting on a whole of a Sunday every 6 months, and I sent out the invitation for the next one, which is on May the 19th, for our doctors.
Yeah.
And the third speaker is Professor Michael Craig, who is a reproductive psychiatrist based at King's and the Maudsley, and he's going to be one of our speakers because of this. And the title for that talk is ADHD/menopause /PMDD. What is the diagnosis? Help, because it's such a mélange of things.
Oh, and that is and that is so wonderful, and I find that really exciting as well, because I will always be a life learner, but I think it is that passion and interest, and if that is in what's in the room, as we say with Adora, then that's very, very reassuring. So let's talk about some of the practicalities if we can, which is, okay, so Amantha's downloaded the Adora app and she's really enjoying it and it's very useful. And then the AI is suggesting that actually I do need a consultation. Obviously, people are very mindful of costs and actually where they end up. And there's nothing more frustrating than being passed from pillar to post. So how does it work within Adora? Do we just stay with you? Or I know some other alternatives are that you get then put back to your NHS system so that the costs are absorbed by the NHS. How does it work with the system you're running?
Yeah, so at the moment we're distributed as an employee benefit. So employers buy subscriptions for their staff, and then some will buy consultations and some won't. So for those who buy the consultations, it's just so simple. Women just can click through at a time that suits them, and the team are very, very flexible around that. But I'll let Karen answer the continuity of care because it's a really important thing, I think.
Well, it is extremely important that we communicate with the NHS GP, and we don't stand alone. We absolutely do our consultations, and we can send. It's quite common for people to, if HRT is not always the answer. I think it's really important. We're not hell-bent on everybody taking HRT. It's for the right person at the right time, the right product if needs be, but there's a lot of other things that need to be done as well. And it may be that that there's a bit of a bell ringing that actually this amount of bleeding that this lady has got, you really need to be examined, you really need a scan. And so we will then write to the GP to make a recommendation, just the same as if somebody had been to see me in my private practice, or my other colleagues in their private practice, or in their NHS practice. So we are very much an integrated service, but sometimes we'll send a first 3 months supply of something for speed. And if we do blood tests, they can be done. Most people are quite familiar with the idea of doing finger prick blood tests these days. They're not often needed, but for some ladies, I'll give you a good example. I hope it's a good example. A lady who had quite a lot of perimenopausal symptoms, and she started a patch or whatever method of HRT she's taking, and she's not feeling better. So she's given a higher dose, and she's still not feeling better. And I am sure that there are quite a large number of women walking around the country today with a patch stuck on their tummy or their bottom, and they're simply not absorbing it.
No.
And you could stick patches on all over and they still wouldn't absorb it. So it's a mystery to me why, as a medical fraternity, we are not as keen on monitoring treatments that we're giving to women, where we would if we were treating their thyroid underactivity. It isn't logical to me as a scientist to think that we just tell women to up the dose. If you're putting 8 pumps of gel on, well, you're clearly not absorbing it.
And it's those super physiological doses that we don't have any data on, and we don't know what that is doing to people, do we?
Exactly. And then, of course, the ladies run into other difficulties because it's not being counterbalanced by progestogen. So I see lots and lots of women in my gynae clinic, my general gynae clinic, and the 2-week rule clinic with abnormal bleeding because they've overstimulated the endometrium through just going up and up and up, not having it regulated.
Well, I agree with you 100%. So a little bit of me for my personal story. So I have histamine intolerance, Karen, which is another layer of complexity. So for people who don't know that, estrogen and histamine are like twins. What one does, the other one does. And so during pollen season last year, I happened to have pelvic pain at the same time. It was in the throes of the pollen season. I went and I saw my consultant and I had a blood test. My estrogen levels were off the charts. And they couldn't understand it. And I was complaining of breast pain, just feeling quite bloated, all of these things. But thank goodness she did, because I was on the lowest dose. I was on 0.5 milligrams of Sandrina 3 times a week. That just would not alone be enough to cause those high readings. So I think I agree with you that I do think there is a place for the right assessment test intervention, because we're all uniquely different. I think we started the conversation by saying that. So it would be appropriate for us to sort of think in that way. So it's quite refreshing that I've heard you say that, because I don't hear that said often enough, in my opinion. But so it's really clear then. So is there anything I haven't asked you about Adora that would be helpful for anyone watching this? Because you know your product better than I do. Is there anything that it offers, or what you wrap around it, that would appeal to people that we haven't said already?
So, I mean, it's about health and well-being during this stage of life. So, as you know, as Karen said, it's about lifestyle habits, and it's about educating women on things like the importance of bone health and thinking about exercise in a different way, the importance of nutrition and gut health and microbiome. So it's not just a clinical app, it's very much looking at a woman's life. And it's built to try and work with her constant sort of multiple plates spinning. So I think that's quite important to say, that it doesn't matter your approach. You could be HRT or not HRT, you'll still find content that's really, really relevant, and that's really promoting lifestyle, encouraging healthy lifestyle, because it's about living healthily for as long as we can. And if we can pay attention to that, when this happens to us, then we're giving ourselves the best chance, really, and that's what we like to promote.
Yes,
Karen. I can add to that, Amantha. The truth is that it's a class product.
Of course it is.
The reason I joined Anne, and Ed Smith is the developer, the other co-founder, partly because I liked them enormously. They're honourable.
That helps. It helps a lot, doesn't it? Yeah.
Really honourable, good people. But it is a class product. It is not a fly-by-night, raise awareness, sell some vitamin D, sell some tests. It's not that at all. It is elegant. It's nice to have in your hand. You know, you've got the feel that you can trust this. And I hope that the medical side, of course, gives it huge gravitas. It should do. But it's a class act.
Yeah, and that's why I really liked it. When I met Anne, we met last year, didn't we, Anne? At the it was at University College London. We'll touch on in a minute now about the menopause guidelines, because, you know, when we think about this, it's all very well. I'm sometimes guilty of thinking, well, everyone knows about menopause, don't they? And everyone knows about how important it is to be treating it. The reality is, I think we live in a vacuum quite a lot of the time. And actually, so many people have no idea. If you're on a 0 hours contract and your only other person that you know is your boss, it's unlikely you're going to be getting any menopause awareness in your business anytime soon. There's a startling statistic about the number of 50-plus-year-olds who are full-time carers. Well, they're not going to be getting access to that information. And we've had data recently from Theramex, which was published quite recently, which is saying that actually, if you are non-white and in a low socioeconomic area, you have slim to any choices given to you when it comes to your options, particularly around HRT. So it is really important that we think about actually how will this serve people. So tell me, what are your aspirations for the future? Obviously, you're going into corporates first, and that makes sense, because actually that's where there is a wider opportunity, I would imagine, at the moment. What is your hope for the future with Adora when you think about going wider with it?
Yeah, I mean, we actually started this hoping that the NHS would make this available for all women. We don't want to leave anyone behind, but working with the NHS is more of a marathon than a sprint. We're still talking to them, we're still trialling, we're piloting, we're working with NHS Scotland, we're working on pilots in Kent, but it's slow. But it's incredibly important to all, myself, my co-founder, and Karen, that we have this approach. It's in our blood. We do a lot of research with groups of women who find it hard to advocate for themselves, and working with a great student at UCL. We're looking at Muslim community and the barriers that women are facing, particularly to understand what's happening and being heard by healthcare professionals. And there's some stories that will be published with the research there about how they're just dismissed and gaslighted. And you know, we wanted to understand whether digital barriers, and there are no digital barriers. And actually, the women we spoke to had so many ideas for months, which was wonderful. And they absolutely got the need, and they would absolutely love to have been given something like this when they saw their GP, instead of being told to go away and it's normal and just put up with it. But you know, if we want to achieve that vision of leaving no woman behind, we have to be available in the NHS. So we're working to that. But as I say, it's not a quick process, but it's definitely worthwhile. And in terms of, Karen and I have spoken many times that we would just love women when they get to sort of the age of 40 to be given our platform or good resources, so that they can start to really think about the second part of their life in a really positive way, no matter who they are and what their resources, what their circumstances. We want to be able to engage with them in a way that helps them and improves their health outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. It's probably quite a nice time to mention Helen Tomlinson, who's the national menopause champion, and I always love when Helen stands and says, it's almost like it's like, no, this does not happen on my watch, but no one's stepping back, stepping down, or stepping out because of something that could otherwise be supported. And I think there's room for everybody, isn't there? Because, you know, we've still got so much of work to do. You know, when we think that on average, someone with female biology, a woman will spend on average 38 years of her life post-menopausally.
Yep.
That is a huge opportunity for our economy, for the welfare of our society. You know, it's worth doing, and soon, because too much time has passed already, hasn't it? I mean, from your point of view, Karen, do you have any thoughts about, obviously we've got women's health hubs, you know, do you feel like they can make a big difference in this arena?
They can, but of course they're physical premises, by and large, and they need to embrace the digital side, the remote consultations. I've spoken to Leslie Regan, who I trained with actually, about this very same thing. So they need to embrace that. But having scanning facility or facilities to put in intrauterine systems, Mirena coils or whatever, it would be a very good thing. But they're physical, and they're expensive, and they're not needed for the majority of women. That's what I would say.
No.
And I would just add one other thing on that. I don't like a World Menopause Day, really. I think it's silly. I want it to be normal,
part and parcel of everyday life. We don't need a day to
we don't.
That would be a great aspiration, wouldn't it? I'm the same. I keep a very low profile on World Menopause Day, Karen, I have to say, because I can't bear the sort of meno washing, as I call it. It drives me absolutely bonkers. So I sort of keep a low profile on that day. And I do actually urge corporate clients to avoid October. If you're going to do something, do it the other 11 months of the year, because it will carry much more gravitas and weight than if you're saving it up for then. So as we sort of bring things to a close then, which has just been brilliant to speak to you, and I'm sure so many of my corporate clients and the people who will connect with us will be interested to know more. I mean, it would probably be a good time to say, how can people find out more about this brilliant resource and what you're offering?
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. So our website is adora.health. I'm on LinkedIn, Ann O'Neill LinkedIn, and Adora Digital Health is on LinkedIn. That's our company page, but you can follow me and get in touch that way, or just email me. My email is ann@adora.health, so really simple. And we're at some events this summer. We're at the water cooler event, which is an employee benefit event. We're at Reba later in the summer. So if anyone's there and sees us, love to come say hello. And that's how.
And you're on Instagram as well. You've got a page on Instagram, haven't you? So lots of people
we have. Yes.
So there's a page on Instagram. And how about for yourself, Karen? Is there a way that people can know more about you?
Yes, my company is called Dr. Morton's Limited. So if you go to www.drmortons.co.uk, you could register and have a consultation tonight if you wanted to. And by comparison with the costs of going to see a menopause specialist anywhere around the country, it's very, very, very affordable.
I have to say that was one of the things that I think I had to say to Anne twice. Sorry, how much? Because I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
and I think I really love that about what you're doing. It is, you know, it is affordable. Yes, we've all got to make choices and things like this in life, but actually people needn't suffer for a small amount of personal investment. And why wouldn't you invest in yourself? I think it's well worth doing. I was super excited to meet both of you together. Obviously, I've spoken to Anne, but I hope this has been as joyous for you as it has been for me. And I'm sure it will be a great thing to get you back, you know, if we can talk more about that. But from me to you, I really love, and have personally said I really love this product, having had a chance to see it. I probably, my only regret is I wish I had access to something like this 16 years ago. That would have made a really big difference, because I really did put myself, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people find themselves. It's a bit like, you know, if you're looking for a plumber, okay, I'm not likening you to a plumber, but if you've got a problem with your water system and you need a plumber emergency, who do you pick? How do you know who's credible? I mean, people can have stickers and all sorts of badges, but actually, unless you have people you can trust in your directory, it's all a bit of a gamble. And I see so many people grasping at straws, trawling the aisles in chemists and high street stores, trying to fix themselves. And when we talk about over medicalizing menopause, if you look in people's bathroom cabinets, I think it will show you we are very under medicalizing it, because of, you know, my cupboard is awash with things I thought that was going to help me. If I'd had access to an app and the right information and the right experts, I think it would have been a much shorter journey for me, really and truly.
We hope so. We hope to accelerate that. And, you know, as I said, it came from personal experience. And I too wish I had Adora, but we were determined to be part of the solution there and to get people thriving and back on track as quickly as they could. And that's what we're doing.
So that's brilliant. And so if I leave the last word to both of you, if you were to have to, you know, let's pretend we're all fairy godmothers, why not, with a bit of sprinkle dust? If you had one hope for the future, when we think about all aspects of women's health, because I think Karen sort of position that really powerfully, which is there's a lot to consider. What would be your hope for the future? Let's say in the next 5 years, where would you hope we would arrive, either of you?
I mean, for me, it's that women don't have to go for anything because of their health, because of their biology, that there is an acceptance, that there is support, and that they continue to thrive no matter the stage, no matter what's going on, and that women's. So one of the things we haven't talked about, it's very late to talk about it now, but we collect data on symptoms and how they unfold, and so we're hoping the data we collect is useful. And really, finally, we find out what's really going on in a woman's body at this time of life. So I hope more education, more information, more data, so that it's different for the next generation coming behind.
Yeah, lovely. And no pressure, Karen.
No, well, no pressure. Definitely no pressure. I mean, women are naturally hardworking creatures. They've got a lot of plates in the air constantly, and actually throughout their lives, but at 50, they've often got huge numbers of plates. And we just want to be having a happy time and doing all the things, working hard. And working hard doesn't necessarily mean being in the workplace. It could be, but just think how many teachers, nurses, doctors in commercial world there are. And women need to be their best selves, and they deserve to be their best selves.
Oh, I think that's lovely. I really love that. Well, I can't add to that, so I won't. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Wish you absolutely all the best. And we're going to put this out on LinkedIn. We'll put all your details in the show notes. So I'm absolutely sure you will have an increased amount of interest for your product. And I know we will have conversations in the future too. But for now, thank you so much, Dr. Karen Morton and Ann O'Neill.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Bye, Mike.
Take care. Bye.